So we had actually had two brisos. There was the brisa of Rabbi Yishmael, and there was just the regular Tanu Rabbanan that we learned yesterday, talking about the different types of grasshoppers and how do we know what are the kosher signs of a grasshopper, etc. So now asks the Gemara on Samach Vav Amud Aleph. What's the argument between these two different brisos? The Tana that was in the Sifra of Rav, the Brisa from the Sifra of Rav, and the Brisa from the Yeshiva of Rabbi Yishmael. So explains the Gemara. Gemara answers. Birosho Aruch Kamiflugi. They argue about a grasshopper who has a long head. In other words, the Tana of the Beirav, the first Brisa, holds it has to have the four signs of a kosher grasshopper: 4 wings, 4 legs, 2 jumpers, and wings that cover the majority of the body. Plus, it can't have a long head. We saw yesterday it could have a bald head, but it can't have a long head. Whereas Rabbi Yishmael holds that all you need is the 4 signs: 4 legs, 4 wings, wings that cover the majority of the body, 2 jumpers, and it could even have a long head. You don't have to have a 5th sign, the fact that it doesn't have a long head. So Barosha Aruch Kamiflugi. They're arguing about this case of a creature with a long head. According to Tanna Rav, it wouldn't be kosher, and according to Tanna Rabbi Yishmael, it would be kosher. Tanna Rav Savar, the Tana from the Yeshiva of Rav holds, the verse says, Asher lo chrayim, that has jumpers to it. A grasshopper with jumper legs. So that's klal. It's saying all the different grasshoppers with jumper legs are included. Then it says Arbe, Salam, Chargol, and Chagav, 4 different types, Arbe, Salam, Chargol, and Chagav, and adds after each type either Limino or Liminehu. So that is a prat. That's a detail, saying the only things that are allowed are the Arbe, Salam, Chargol, and Chagav. So we have Klal Uprat. So we have a general rule, and then you have details. So generally the rule when you have such a situation is in B'chlal Masha B'prat. So the details are limiting down the rule. They're saying the rule only applies to these details. So that would mean that only these things are kosher, diminei, those that are the type of arbe or salam or chargol or chagav, those are kosher. Delav diminei lo. But if it's not from those 4 types, it wouldn't be kosher. Then Umar b'didami le'mishnei tzadim. And then it's including things that are like what's mentioned in the Torah in 2 ways. Namely, that it has the 4 signs, the wings, the legs, the jumpers, and the majority of the body being covered by the wings. And it has the other aspect that it doesn't have a long head. That's the view of Tana Debei Rav, the Tana from the Rav's Yeshiva. However, Tana Debei Rabbi Yishmael, the Tana from the Yeshiva of Rabbi Yishmael, that Brisa Savar, he learns like this. Asher lo kra'ayim, when it says a creature that has jumpers, that's a klal. That would be including all the grasshoppers with jumpers. Then when it says arba, salam, chargol, and chagav, that is a prat. Okay, that's in fact, yes, a detail. But then when it says limineu is not a further part of the detail, it's chazav v'kalal. That's again another generalization. So when you have klal pratu klal, yatadan elakeina prat. So then you derive things that are like the details. So the Torah is saying all the things like the detail would be included. If that's the case, as we've said, had the Torah not said salam, we would have been able to figure it out from arbe, chargol, and arbe and chargol through this tzad hashava. So why was salam mentioned? So Marbi called the Damile B'chad Tzad. So Salam was mentioned to include even something which has a long head, and basically we're including anything that has just one similarity to these examples, namely it has the 4 simanim, even though these don't have a long head, and it would have a long head, it would be kosher.
So you must have the 4 recognitions, otherwise one of them is missing, not kosher.
That's for sure. But the question is, what about if it has a long head? Is it 4 simanim plus another siman? Namely that it doesn't have a long head, or it could be 4 simanim even with a long head.
You mean on the top of the 4 simanim, one more...
There's another thing, right, another siman.
So
it
then
doesn't
it
have a
makes it
long
more
head.
kosher, I guess, right, Rabbi?
Maybe.
I don't know.
So now asks the Gemara, I don't understand. How does Tana de Rabbi Yishmael say that what we have here is a klal upratu klal, that asher lo kra'ayim klal, arba salam chargol chagav prat, liminehu is the second klal, so it's a klal upratu klal, v'alo dami klala kamel klala basra, but the first klal, asher lo kra'ayim, that has jumpers, is not like the last klal, liminehu, klala kamel, the first klal, asher lo kra'ayim amrachmana, that a grasshopper that has jumpers, Hashem says, that sounds the isle, whichever has jumpers, echo eat. The lesle, if it doesn't have jumpers, lo teicho, you can't eat. So it sounds like all you need is jumpers. Whereas Klala Basra says limineyu to the type of arbe, salam, chargo, and chagav, right, limineyu to the type of arbe, salam, chargo, and chagav, that's different. Liminehu of its type. Kalabasa deshavu ba'arba simanim. The last klal is not to include something that only has jumpers. Liminehu, according to its type, that means it would have to have the 4 signs of 4 legs, 2 jumpers, 4 wings, wings that cover most of the body. So the Gemara says, how do you call it a klal upratu klal? And says the Gemara, Tana de Rabbi Yishmael, it's consistent in the yeshiva Rabbi Yishmael that the people teaching Braisos there, Klal Uprati, when they dealt with this drasha, Klal Upratu Klal, Ki Hai Gavna, in such a situation where the first klal is a little bit different than the last klal, still they still would interpret it as Klal Upratu Klal. They always read that as a Klal Upratu Klal. Udarmina Nami Ba'alma. And all over, when we say Didoyin Tana de Rabbi Yishmael b'Klal Uprati, that the Tana de Rabbi Yishmael is teaching something with the Klal Upratu Klal, Ki Hai Gavna, that he does it in such a way that the latter klal is not exactly similar to the first klal, and even so, it's considered a Klal Upratu Klal. Mehacha, the source for it is grasshoppers, because in grasshoppers, the first klal said anything with jumpers is included. The last klal only said anything with 4 signs is included, but still, it's anything with 4 signs, not just these particular types. And the first klal was saying anything with jumpers, so both are much more general than the details in between. And therefore, if they're more general, you can trigger the klal uprat uklal mechanism. Okay, going back to the Brisa. Amar Mar, we learned in the Brisa of Tana de Rabbi Yishmael, we learned that it has to be Vesech Chagav, it has to have its name, it has to be Chagav. So we learned, Ishmo Chagav, maybe if you have something called Chagav, Yachal Ein Bo Kol Simanim Alalu, maybe even without the various Simanim that were mentioned, without 4 legs and without wings, it would also be kosher. Tamalama, that's what it says, Lemineu, according to its kind. It has to have all of these simanim. So Mara says, one second, how does that make sense? Without the word leminei, we would have thought it means, even without these simanim. Ein bo simanim alalu meicha teisi. Why would we think that if it doesn't have the simanim, it could be kosher? Arba v'chargol ksiv. The Torah says arba, locusts. It says chargol. These are things that have 4 simanim. So certainly chagav would also only be kosher with 4 simanim. So the Gemara answers, ilo ksiv salam. If the Torah wouldn't have said salam, kidduka amarta, then it would have been as you said, that arba and chargol would include only things with 4 simanim. But salam, but now it says salam. It's an extra word, so that's to include other things. Therefore, l'rbuye rosho aruch. We said in the Brisa, it's to include something that has a long head. That's also kosher. So once you have salam including things, maybe it includes something which doesn't have 4 simanim, just has 1 siman. Kamashwan, that's you have to have the word lumineyu. That it has to have 4 simanim to be kosher. Okay. Says the Gemara, Maishna Hasam, why in the Brisa of Rav, the Amit you said Salam is called Rasham, and Chargol is called Nipo. Well, Maishna Hacham, why here in the Brisa of Rabbi Shmuel you said Salam is Nipo, and you said Chargol is Rasham. So what is Rasham? Is Rasham Salam, or is Rasham Chargol? It says it depends on the place. Marki Asri or Marki Asri. Rav was like his place. Rabbi Shmuel was like his place. In Rav's place, it would be called, Salam would be called Rashon. In Rabbi Shmuel's place, Salam would be called Nipo. So it's not a contradiction. It just depends. The names, it's the same thing. But one place they call it one thing, the other place they call it the other thing. But it's really the same grasshopper, and it is kosher. Okay, now we move from grasshoppers to fish. What makes a fish kosher? Fins and scales. Okay. Uvadagim, and a fish, kol sheyesh lo snapir v'kaskasas. It has to have fins and scales. We saw this quoted earlier. Elo achshav. Let's say the fish doesn't have scales right now. But if you let it grow, right now it's a little goldfish, it doesn't have scales. But if you let it grow to be full size, it's going to develop scales. Kagon sultanis, like the sultanis. How do they translate sultanis? They just say sultanis. What do they say? A sardine? Yeah. Okay. A sardine.
Sultanit and afian?
Yeah, afian. How do they translate afian?
Yeah.
Herring. Herring. All right, so herring and the afyan, apparently they grow initially when they're first young, they don't have scales, and they develop. Since they develop later, reizem mutter, it's permissible. What about another case? Yesh lo achshav. It has scales now. But asad lahashira b'shah shalom minayam. When you take it out of the sea, the scales are going to fall off. Kagon, for example, like akuna. Akunas, and Apunas, and Kaspatias. These are all Persian names. I guess it's Old Persian.
No, these are more Greeks, Rabbi.
Greek names?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Saptias and Atunas. Atunas sounds Greek.
Yeah.
So these scales fall off. Areza mutter, this is also kosher.
So they're going when it's the Kaspati in the mouth.
Yeah, that's also enough.
Yeah.
That's also enough. All right, again. A fish is kosher with scales and fins. So now in Assam, we have a Mishnah in Meseches Nida. Kal sheyesh lo kaskeses, any fish that has scales, yesh lo snapir, has fins. Yesh, and then there are fish, yesh lo snapir, that have fins, ve'en lo kaskeses, but don't have scales. If it has scales, it always has fins. But if it has fins, it doesn't necessarily have scales. So 1 second. Yesh lo kaskeses, v'yesh lo snapir. The Mishnah explains, if it has scales plus fins, it's aktar, it's kosher. Yesh lo snapir, ve'en lo kaskeses. If it has fins without scales, it's agtamik. It's not a kosher fish. Asks the Gemara, let's take a look. Kaskeses kas samchina. The bottom line is really, you only need 1 siman. Scales. Because if it has scales, you know it has fins.
Yeah.
And if it has scales, it has fins, then it's kosher. If it doesn't have scales, then it might just have fins and it's not kosher. So it's not really you need fins and scales, you need scales. Why do you mention that you need fins too? You don't really need the fins. You need scales, because what we said, wherever there are scales, there are fins. Yeah. So you always need really scales. You don't really always need fins. You don't need to say you need fins and scales. You should just say, I need scales. And you'll have the right ones. Yeah. So lift the Rachmana kaskeses v'lift of snapir. Why did the Torah say snapir v'kaskeses? Fins, snapir, fins, v'kaskeses and scales. The Torah could have just said, you only eat fish that have kaskeses, that have scales. Then they'll also have fins. And that's enough. Answer the Gemara, because of Rachmana kaskeses, if the Torah would have just said scales, the low cost of snapir, and not say it also needs to have fins. Have I would have thought to say, Ma'u kaskeses, what does the word kaskeses mean? Snapir. It means fins. And then, Vafilu dag tamid. Then even a non-kosher fish I'd be permitting, because it would be a fish, it would just have fins and not have scales. So Kasser Rachman Hashem had to say snapir v'kaskeses. So there are two markers here. Snapir is one, kaskeses is another. It can't be that it's just referring to fins. And I know it's referring to fins and scales. So Mar says 1 second. Which is which? That's Fred's question. V'ashtu the Kasser Rachman. So now that HaKadosh Baruch Hu writes snapir v'kaskeses, fins and scales. Mimai the kaskeses levushahu. How do you know that the word kaskeses is the garment, the scales? Maybe kaskeses is the fins. Answers the Gemara, the Chsiv. We have it in regards to Goliath, where the pasuk says the Siryon kaskasim ulovesh, and a shirt of kaskasim, of scales, of these metal armor, metal spheres he's wearing. So it's talking about Goliath, that he was wearing a helmet of an armored helmet of copper, and he was wearing siryon, he was wearing scales. So you see that siryon is the scales covering the fish that it's wearing. It's a garment, it's not the fins, the little things that help it float. What?
So if you know that already, you don't need both words.
That's the next question. V'lichta Rachmana kaskeses, v'lichta snapir. The Gemara now asks Fred's second question. So let the Torah say kaskeses. And I know that kaskeses means like a male coat. I know what it means from the pasuk in Shmuel. And then I don't need snapir. Amar Rabbi answered, this is also what the Tana from the Yeshiva Rabbi Shmuel said. You're right, the Torah didn't have to say snapir. It could have just said kaskeses. But sometimes the Torah uses some extra language to make the Torah bigger. Yagdil Torah v'yadir. The Torah is increased and made more glorious by it being longer, more effort to study it, and more to figure out. You increase the glory of the Torah. That's what's going on here. Yagdil Torah v'yadir. Okay.
So Rabbi, because of the fear of confusing the meaning of the two words, that's why Hashem wrote both words?
That's what it said, but then it said really you wouldn't confuse them because you do know what kaskeses is. Kaskeses is male armor.
So, but we know that every word is not in the Torah by, as an extra.
Right. So this is apparently not called an extra. To get us to study and to think about it is also not called an extra. To increase the study of Torah. That's the beginning of the, this week's Parshas Mishpatim. We have all the 4 damagers, right? So we learned in Bava Kama, the Mishnah taught that had the Torah only said ox, I wouldn't have been able to learn pit. Had the Torah only said pit, I wouldn't have been able to learn fire. But then the Mishnah ultimately says the Torah could have said 2 of them. It could have said pit and, let's say, fire. And from them, I would have said, if those 2 are obligated, then you're certainly obligated when you have ox damaging or a person damaging. So I said, okay, Yagdil Torah v'yadir. Right? You could have figured it out, but you want to increase the Torah, make it more glorious. Sometimes we go on a little bit of a longer road than we needed to, but that's also good. It's a Torah road. Yagdil Torah v'yadir.
More education anyhow.
Yeah, more education.
Yeah, but also a fish without fin cannot swim, Rabbi, right? It's like a wing of an airplane. You need the fin to
Right. To
directions
navigate.
and navigate.
But
and
some
all that,
creatures
yeah.
inside the water don't have fins.
Sure, jellyfish.
They crawl in the jellyfish. The one they really swim good, they have to have a fin.
Lobsters.
No?
Oh no, they're shellfish. They have no fins.
They don't.
They have
They
fins.
Crab,
fins.
lobster.
But they crawl. They're not, swimmer.
Okay. How
So
would we
that's
know that you
swimmers.
have to have swimmers necessarily?
Yeah.
That's right.
All right, so now we move on to again some more laws about fish. Tanar Rabbanan learned in a brisa. Mimashma shenemar. Once the pasuk says "Echola sheyesh lo," eat the fish that have fins and scales. Shomei ani. So I could just infer from that al tochal she'ein lo. You can't eat the fish that don't have fins and scales. Mimashma shenemar al tochal she'ein lo. So once the Torah says don't eat fish that don't have fins and scales, Shomei ani. So then I could infer from that. Do eat the fish that do have fins and scales. So why does the Torah repeat both what you should eat and what you can't eat? And zet tochlu mikol asher b'mayim, kol asher lo snapir v'kaskesses b'mayim, b'yamim u'v'nechalim, osot tochelu. V'chol asher ein lo snapir v'kaskesses b'mayim u'v'nechalim, mikol sheretz hamayim, kol nevesh achai asher b'mayim, sheket seim lochem. V'sheket yu lochem ibsaram, lo sochelu, v'esnivlasam tishaketzu. Kol asher ein lo snapir v'kaskesses b'mayim, sheketzu lochem. So why does it have to say both? The answer is lavar olav basei v'lo tasei. To create a situation where there would be a violation of both an asei and a lo tasei. If somebody eats fish that don't have fins and scales, he violates a lo tasei, a lo tochelu, and he also violates an asei of what he should be eating.
So, you know the scale, why the scale must have the scale, Rabbi, the reason for the scale, and,
I don't know why Hashem said these
Okay,
two
because
characteristics.
fish has a lot of holes. Right underneath his scale is holes in it.
Right.
So when a fish drinks a bad water in the ocean, okay, let it out through the holes out of the body. Okay, when you talk about the other fish, they don't have the holes. So whatever they drink in the ocean, it melts into the meat of the fish. Okay, so that's why the meat gets contaminated. That's why they said it's not kosher. But the scale, they let it out through the holes of the scales. Okay, so that's why the meat is very nice and clean. So this
Maybe
is how
it's an added benefit. I don't know.
that's the difference between kosher, fish and non-kosher.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
How I know.
What's with the swordfish? So it's clear in the Gemara that if the scales fall off, it's kosher.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a species. So it's
But still the hole is there.
Well, I know that.
So there's even apparently a Darkei Tshuva that talks about dag cherev, a fish of a sword, and he says it's kosher. So I don't know. I think that what I heard is that they said that when it came out in the 50s, so the conservatives here in America, they were saying that swordfish was kosher, the conservative rabbis.
Right.
And there was an Orthodox rabbi who said, no, they got it wrong because these scales, he said something, these scales are not real scales. They're scales, but they don't count as scales. So it became a very good way to divide Orthodox from conservative.
wow.
Because they were
So
giving,
how far conservative?
What else is there, Rabbi?
like they were giving hechsherim, and they would say, no, you can't rely on them because they would even eat swordfish, so you couldn't rely on them. And it's a very good way, apparently. But there are some poskim, I think, who feel that swordfish are okay. Rabbi Rimon in Israel, do they let swordfish?
What is saltfish?
Dag cherev?
I don't think so.
No, they don't allow it in Israel either. Why not?
I think because what they said.
Because in the 50s they stopped it here.
לא בטוח שזה קשקשים.
They're not sure that those are considered scales.
So the swordfish for sure is not kosher then.
As far as I know.
In
As far as I
Morocco, they
know.
eat swordfish.
Really?
Yeah.
They ate swordfish in Morocco?
That,
Oh, all right. Well, here in America they don't eat it. And in Israel they don't eat it. So I guess they're not going to be eating it. It maybe, spiritually it can connect to this thing that you'll find. Like we learned all about trephos, and different trephos, some kosher, some, let's say, the windpipe has, if the majority is cut, it's a problem. If a minority is cut, it's not a problem. The food pipe, even a little hole, is a problem. When you look in the Ramah is much stricter than what the Gemara says. Like he'll say things that the Gemara said are okay, This is our minhag not to eat them. So what's pshat? The Gemara said it's okay. Why make life so hard for people? Say not to eat it. So the Kabbalah says that whenever you eat, you're lifting up sparks. So earlier generations, they were stronger spiritually. They were able to lift up more sparks. So we're weaker. There's less that we could lift up. So the Ramah therefore said it's our minhag not to eat it. So okay, in Morocco maybe they were able to eat the swordfish, but we're not on the level anymore to be able to lift up the sparks of the swordfish. So Hashem arranges that the rabbi said, no good, it's no good. Like what Almog taught us about turkey. Right? Hashem wanted the turkey to be eaten, so he arranged that they misidentified the turkey. He wants the swordfish not to be eaten. He arranged that maybe they made a mistake, but bottom line is, it's not eaten. Okay, so now it says the Brisa further. The pasuk says, "As zed tochlu mikol asher b'mayim, kol asher los napir v'kaskesas b'mayim b'yamim u'v'anachalim osam tochelu." So it said, "Et zed tochlu." This is what you should eat, and then it goes on to say, "Osam tochelu." So ma tamud lomar. Why does the verse say "Ez zed tochlu" if it's going to say again, "Osam tochelu"? That's what you're going to eat. So the Gemara explains like this: Sheyachol, I would have thought, Hoel v'hitir b'meforash v'hitir b'sasim. Since there's one pasuk that explicitly permits sheret samayim, things that are crawling from the water, and something else which explains generally sheret samayim, I might have said like this: Makashitir b'meforash lo hitir ela b'kelim. The pasuk that permits Sheret Samayim is allowing these crawlers that are in water that's in utensils. Afkashitir Bistam, so the pasuk that allows it without mentioning utensils, Lohitir Ela B'Kelim. Maybe it's only permitting in utensils, but saying that if these things grow in rivers, then they're not kosher. Minayin l'rabos. How do I know to include boros when you have round circles in the ground with water, or sichin, or you have ditches, uma'aros, or caves, that a person's allowed to lay down on the floor and drink from them, even though there are things in them. That's what the verse says, tochlu mikol asher b'mayim. You could eat from all that's in the waters, that even the shkatzim growing in the boros, sichin ma'aros, you're allowed to drink them together with the water. So the Gemara now says, and where do we know that the shkatzim that are in utensils, that are in water, that grew from water that's in utensils, that they could be ingested? Heichan hitir b'kelim, where do we find shkatzim permitted in the utensils? The chsiv, the verse says, "As zeh tochlu," this you could eat. Mikol asher b'mayim, from all that's in the water. Kol asher los napir v'kaskesas b'mayim, bayamim uvanachalim, whatever has fins and scales in the water, in the oceans and in the rivers. Osam tochelu, those are the ones you should eat. So it's saying like this: bayamim uvanachalim, when we're talking about oceans and rivers. That's when we said, Osam tochelu, you can only eat water creatures with fins and scales, to lesle lo teichel. But for the waters of the oceans and the rivers, if it doesn't have fins and scales and it's a water creature, you can't eat it. But when we have the water creatures of kalim, not from the water of oceans and rivers, but from water that's in utensils, even though it doesn't have fins and scales, you are allowed to eat it. So 1 second. But why don't we suggest the kalim, it may be the water creatures from the water that's in utensils, even though it does have fins and scales, lo teichol, you couldn't eat it. When it says lo salka daitach, you can't think to say that, because it says v'chol asher ein lo snapir v'kaskasas, and whatever doesn't have fins and scales, bayamim uvanachalim, in the oceans and in the rivers, mikol sharet samayim, of all the crawlers of the waters, and mikol nefesh achaya asher b'mayim, and from all the living things in the water, sheket seim lochem, it's disgusting for you. So it's saying, bayamim uvanachalim, when it's the oceans and the rivers, delesle, then those things that don't have fins and scales, lo teichel, you can't eat. Abakalim, but that's teaching you that if it is water in a utensil, afalgav delesle, even though it doesn't have fins and scales, echol, you are allowed to eat it. So therefore, when the pasuk is saying that you're allowed to eat things from the, it's implying that things that are in the water in cups, you can eat it. It's referring to even shkatzim in the waters in cups. It's the shkatzim in the waters of the ocean that you're not allowed to eat.
What are you saying, Rabbi? I don't understand.
The Gemara is saying that these psukim, which talk about all sorts of sea creatures, and it says that the sea creatures that are allowed are the sea creatures with the fins and scales, that's referring to sea creatures from the oceans and the rivers. But sea creatures from a collection of water that's not the oceans and the rivers, then you could eat it even if it doesn't have fins and scales.
What would you do,
Correct.
Rabbi?
Because the water in the ocean is much dirtier than the spring water, I think. No?
The water in the ocean, little worms, it sounds like.
So if the fish comes in from
Little worms that are in water that I guess the Gemara assumed that the way I understand is that the Gemara thought that the water creates the worms. So it thinks that if you have a collection of water in a cup and you have it sit for 2 weeks and you find a little worm in there, so the water made the worm. The worms that come from water, it's not in the seas. You can drink the whole thing.
So people that want to filter the water now because of potential microorganisms.
Maybe that would be part of this discussion.
Could be the same
Seems to
discussion?
be, right.
So that worm is kosher la Pesach?
Seems to be saying, yeah.
Ah.
Okay, Bezrat Hashem will continue with this tomorrow.